So today I'm going to try to add some classes to Google Classroom from a spreadsheet. There is no import or anything like that, so we have to create some scripts. So I have this Google Classroom. So generally the way you would, I guess, add a class here, you're going to click on this plus button and create class. So that's going to come with this. So now we have the class name, section, subject, and room. So I guess the name is required. The rest are not. So if we go ahead and type a name for this class, I'm going to leave the rest empty for now. Click create. So that made it. So if I go back to classes, we have that class. Okay, so now let's try to do this with a script. So I'm going to go to Google Sheet. Basically, it's an empty spreadsheet. Go Tools, Script Editor. We have our function. So let's just rename this. So we need to use Advanced Services. So if I go under Resources, Advanced Google Services, Google Classroom API, version 1. I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. Now, this is the variable name that is going to use to assign this to. So it's called Classroom. I'm going to keep it like this. And at this point, just turn it on and press OK. So updating, so done. So now if I take that variable, Classroom, do period, we should have some methods, see on this. And let's see what we have. So do we have like new course? I didn't pay attention what it was asking for, so let's actually go back and read what it says. So it's not asking for anything, it's just creating a course apparently. So let's just go ahead and do that, and if that's the case, let's just save this in a variable. And let's take that variable, set the name, I guess, for it, because it was required, if you remember. And let's see what else we have here. We have description. So if you remember, there was like section there. You could do that. Room. For now, I'm just going to skip those. We'll come back to those in just a second. Now, the question is, how do we now add that class? Because this just creates the object as far as I can tell. Now, let's see in this classroom what else we have. We have courses collection. So that's, I guess, an array or something. Or, oh, create. Okay. So we have courses create, and that seems to accept a course resource. So I think that should be this. Okay, so let me just try to run this and see what happens. And we got an error. It says, you must specify course owner. Okay, so we have to go figure out what the owner ID is. And I think that was one of the properties here. There it is, owner ID. I thought I saw that. So we have to set it to something apparently, but what should it be? So we have to go check their documentation. So owner ID. Created course as a teacher. All right, so this is not very helpful. Let's just go ahead and for now try email and see what happens as the owner ID. And rerun this and see if that's any better. And otherwise, we'll have to look into this more. So no errors this time. That's good news. Let's go check out the classes. Let's just refresh it. Oh, there it is, another class. We have to accept the class apparently, so that's fine. Let's actually add some more details from here. Let's say we also want to add section, subject, and room to this. So we should be able to do that by simply going here and set those. Where's the subject? The room is here. Description maybe, or description heading. So let's just try both of those. Description And I'll add the room to this too. Okay, so let's run it one more time, and then we should be able to take some spreadsheet data and do this. So that's created. Let's go check this out. So that's the new section that was done correctly. This is section. We have room, description. Let's find those. Room, that's B25. New, that's basically this one. And what is the description heading? Where is that going to go? That one I can't even find. So maybe somebody who's using this on a daily basis can comment and tell me where is that description heading supposed to go. But for me, I'm just going to get rid of this. That seems to be what we need. So at this point, now we can go to our spreadsheet and lay out some data. And I'm just going to add some data here. So far, so good. Now let's try to grab this data and create all of these classes in our Google Classroom. So far we have these. So what we're going to do here, we're going to create another function. And we need to read that spreadsheet data. And then we need to get our worksheet data. And the worksheet is going to be, well, it's called sheet 1. I'm going to change this. And we'll take that worksheet and read the range of data. And we need to start reading that from the second row because the first one is headers and the first column. And we're going to read that until the last row. And this is not really until, this is how many rows. So we're going to do last row minus 1 to get 3 because it's going to give us 4, but we need 3 rows. And then finally, in this case, we'll just say 4 columns. And we'll do get values to read that to an array. So now because that's an array of that data, we should be able to read that data. So let's save that in a variable. And now we can take that data and we can loop through it using for each loop. And that will accept a callback. So we'll take each row, and for each row, we're going to do a callback. And what we're going to do with that, we're going to create a class. Now that's going to be pretty much all of this stuff that's happening here. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to convert this to a function that we can reuse. And we'll pass a class info object here. And in that object, we'll get the name. We'll get the section. And basically the rest of this. So that's that. Now we need to pass that class info to that function over here. So we're going to take that function and we'll pass an object to that function, which is that class info. And that should have all these properties like name, section, etc. Now we're going to start with the name. And the name is really going to be coming from this first column. So that means that's R0. So we're passing this row. And in JavaScript, the count starts from 0. So 0 is really the first one. We also, let me just put this on separate lines. It could stay on one line, but I guess this would be nicer to do. So we'll do name, we'll do section, and we'll do all of these pretty much. And it should match whatever I set here as the class info. And room is the last one. So no comma after the last one. And all of that is going to come from that row. So I think 1 was the next one. So if these were in this particular order, then it's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3. Let's go check it out. Name section, room description. So room is actually 2. And this one is 3. Okay, so with this, let's try to now run this create classes function and see if it creates these 3 classes. So I'm going to run this. So it seems like it's done. Let's go check out classes. Look at that. We got Google Sheets 101, 102, and all of them are in tech category apparently. So one thing we might want to figure out is once we create the class, how can we get the class code? So let's see. Once we create this, what does it return? That returns a course, which means enrollment code. There it is. What we should do, we should probably save this in a variable. And then we should return that enrollment code. And what we should do with those enrollment codes, we should be basically adding them here as another column once the class is created. So what we'll do here when we create our classes, we'll just basically save all those enrollment codes in an array. So it will be an empty array, and each time we create a class, it's going to return an enrollment code. And what we'll do, we'll take this array and we'll push that code to that array. And since we're going to write this to the spreadsheet, let's actually put that in an array structure so we can easily write it back to the spreadsheet. At this point, we should be able to write to our spreadsheet. So we're going to take that worksheet and we're going to get range, which is basically the column where we need to write this information, starting from the second row. And the column for this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 5th column. So the number of rows is going to be the number we have here, the length of the enrollment codes, and the number of columns is just going to be 1. And we're going to set values to those values in this array. So to test this, let me go back and change some of these things. Okay, so let's try this out. So we have some data here. Let's go and run our function to see what happens. Create classes. We're going to run this. So no errors. That's a good sign. Let's go and check out the spreadsheet. We do have some codes. Now let's go just confirm this is correct. So if we go back here, app scripts 101, I am going to accept that. And see, this is 345 IF, whatever, that's the code. Yep, that's correct. So we are able to get the code and basically put it back here in our worksheet. Now let's also try to do another one to just read all the courses we have here and put it in a spreadsheet. And I'm just going to copy paste the same columns over. And let's now try to go read all these classes we have and put it in the spreadsheet over here. Now, I'm not sure if we have to accept it to read it or not, so we're going to find out in a second, I guess. So to keep this clean, let's just make a new script file. And we're going to take that classroom object again. and courses, I guess list. So that should give us courses, I guess. So let's just save this in an array and see what happens. And it seems like there's a way to go to another page there, but for now, we don't care about it. So let's just do a log here to see what this looks like. That's the function. And this is what I have. So we have the ID, we have the description. So it seems like if we do room, that should give us the room at least. Section should give us the section. Do we have a name for this? Name. So it seems like the same convention goes here. Let's just try to just plug in the same things and see what happens. So I'm going to just go from here and do basically the name. Let's just log this out first and see what happens. Assuming I'm looking for the same data. Now let's try to just run this and see if that works. Undefined. So that's not good. Did not do something right here. So let's just go back to the previous log. Oh, of course, that's an array. So I have to loop through that data first. I'll just call it C for course, I guess. We're not going to need this. So all of that is going to now come from that C. Okay, so that's great. So it seems like we're getting the data. Now, right now we're getting everything, including the ones that are not accepted. So let's try to only get the ones that are actually accepted here. So I'm going to have to log the data first to see what it said, and we'll have to filter this. So these are all the things you could get from there by basically doing C dot any of these. But right now, see the course state. I guess we don't want these. Let's see what happens when it's accepted. We should have another example if I scroll down, which is probably after this comma. See, it says course state is active. So we should be able to use that to filter this. So what I'm going to do before we do this for each, let's actually change this to let so we can modify that data. So I'm going to take that data and I'm going to do a filter on it. And we'll do a callback function again. And we don't need the brackets here because it's going to be pretty straightforward. We'll just take that C dot course state and make sure it equals to active. So that way we should be only getting active courses, hopefully at that point. So we need to set our data to this new data after the filter. All right, that's a lot of stuff. I probably forgot to take this off so we don't have to look at it. That seems good. Let me just go check if that's actually what should happen. See, we have this my class, we have this one more class, we have this Google Sheets 101 and App Scripts 101. Those should be the ones that are showing in the log. Yeah, I think that's correct. So now that we have this, let's write this to our spreadsheet. So what we're going to do, instead of doing this for each, we'll actually do map instead, which will create a new array for us. That will be the variable for this. And for each one, we're going to return an array. And that array should basically just contain these columns in the right order. And the right order for us is name, section, room, description, code. Save this. Now that should return an array. Now we need to write that to our spreadsheet. So which means we need to access our spreadsheet. So I'm going to go copy paste some code with it before. So the spreadsheet is going to be our active spreadsheet. The worksheet this time is going to be this one. And then we're going to take that worksheet. We're going to write starting from the first column, second row. So row 2, column 1. And this will be this new array, SS data. And the number of columns will be, if we take the first row and get the length, that should get us the number of columns in that data set that we just extracted, which should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we're going to set values to that data right here. So I'm going to save it. And now let's just run this and see if it writes all those classes to our spreadsheet. So get class data right there, run this function. Done. Let's go check it out. This one doesn't have section, room, description, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. But the rest, whichever one has it, we have it. We have the class code, we have the name, section, room, description, and you could just go through that object that I was going through and add more columns if you need more information. And that should give you some basic concepts how we can write classes to Google Classroom from a spreadsheet, or how we can extract from Google Classroom to our spreadsheet. So I'm sure people who are doing this day in and day out with these classes, they'll have some questions. So let me know in comments. But for this one, that should do it. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.